Today I'm going to be sharing an ancient secret method of planting up cymbidiums, and it all starts with what's in this packet. It's going to save you time, it's going to save you money, it's going to save you hassle, and the cymbidiums just love it. Welcome to the Nature Company. If this is the kind of information you're interested in, please hit that subscribe button down below if you haven't already, and that notification bell to be notified of all our upcoming content so you don't miss out on a thing. Cymbidium growers in Nepal and India have been growing cymbidiums like this for centuries. It's actually a really easy technique, and it's going to save you a lot of time and actually a lot of waste from your garden too. What could this secret ingredient be? And we'll show you what to use and how to use it to ensure that your cymbidiums really grow well. We'll start with the very basics first. When to replant your cymbidium? Well, it's always better to do it when it's at a state like this than when most of us land up doing it when it's already starting to look like this. We get a lot of cymbidiums in from people that are already in this sort of state, and they expect them to flower the next season. Here, with the transplant shock that's going to take place and the amount of removal of all sorts of old dead plant material, it's going to take a while to recover properly. So we really want to get in at the right time when your plant is still nice and strong and healthy before it goes past that point. But what is this magic media that we're going to be using to plant these up into? Well, it's something really simple. It's a 4-ingredient solution. What's in here? Some good quality potting soil or potting media, some kraal manure or cattle manure, well composted preferably, and of course some perlite. So what is this? Let's have a look. It's all those dried winter leaves. They've all come falling off your trees, and you've probably got big piles of them at the bottom of your garden. And instead of carting them away, here's an excellent way to make good use of them. The first thing we're going to have to do is we don't want to put these up as solid leaves. We want to be able to break these up smaller. So you can either just use some scissors to chop them up, or you can just tear them. And why do we want to do this? Well, there's a couple of reasons. We want to make as much surface area on these old dead leaves as possible, because we don't want them sitting one on top of each other in a mess like this in your pot, because this then will stop the air movement going through. So as soon as we can break them up, there's going to be more spaces in between them and not such a big blockage that's going to stop air movement from coming through. It will also allow for that evaporation to take place, because we know what happens with leaves if they're all left in a big pile all together. They form a wet, soggy mess, even though it's pretty dry outside. So just make sure you've cut them up or chopped them up. Perhaps a machete would be easier if you've got a lot. Just and chop them up into pieces, so you're not landing up with full unbroken leaves that can start then causing a problem in the media. And again, also, we're not crushing these into a fine powder. We're just tearing them up into smallish pieces. And if you think of this logically, this is what would happen in nature in their natural environment anyway. Most of them come from those highlands where it gets pretty chilly in winter, and a lot of those trees would be deciduous and of course drop all their leaves, so they'll probably land up with a fair degree of leaf mulch around them, and this is where your cymbidiums would probably be growing the best. There we go. So we're looking for a nice loose sort of size crush of leaf like that. What we're going to be doing then is just adding our potting medium to this. So ensure it's a nice, good quality potting medium that's light, if you want to call it fluffy, and that has a fair percentage of river sand in it. That's going to allow for that drainage. And our cattle manure. And if you notice how much cattle manure I'm actually putting in, it's almost 1/3 of the amount of potting media I've used. One of the reasons that so much cattle manure is put in is because as the leaves decompose, they're going to be using up nitrogen that is available. So we still need nitrogen to be available for plant growth, and we need the nitrogen available to help that decomposition take place. And then all we do here is we just mix the ingredients together. So basically what we're looking for in the mixes of these is an equal volume of this leaf mulch with the volume of our heavier medium, the potting media, and the kraal manure together. You don't want to do it by weight because otherwise your volume of your leaves is really going to be huge. So you want to use it by volume. And all we then do is we add in perlite over the top of that and mix that in. The perlite is here to help keep the lightness to the mixture while still having that moisture retaining qualities. It's going to help keep the mixture fluffy and light and hold any excess nutrients so that they're not drained away too quickly. So there are a few things you're going to have to watch out for while using or when using this media, and we'll get to those now. First we'll pot them up and then we'll explain to you what's going to happen and what you're going to need to do when using this media for your cymbidiums. There we go. We can see what a nice light fluffy mix this is, and we can just imagine how well the roots are going to grow in and through this, and they're going to feel right at home. So first we'll get to this one here. This is at the right point for repotting in the traditional sense. It's filled up its root volume nicely. It had filled out nicely. It's finished flowering, and we want to get in and remove all this excess media now. This is all that old bark and things that really need to be removed now, because it's going to start becoming acidic and start causing problems with the root systems. Also, we can see how compact the root system has become already, and any longer and we would have landed up with this sort of situation again. So we all know with cymbidiums we want to disturb the roots as little as possible. This is just one of those things that we've all known about them, is that if you disturb the roots too much, generally you'll find that they might not flower the next season. They'll only flower the one after that. This is all because of having to do this sort of thing to the root system to get all the old media out. With this new system, or should I say this ancient system, there's a much better way of doing it. And you're not going to cause all of this stress to your plant. There we go, and it's purely a matter now of removing all those old dead roots. So now we can see all these good, strong, healthy root growth that's happening here and at the bottom. So that's basically where we want to leave it and plant it up. There's a couple of different thought methods on this. Certain people will go in and cut off all this older root volume and only leave the new roots to take, which is also a good way of doing it. But with this method, I'm going to be leaving all of these older roots on because they still have good strong growth at their tips. And the way it's going to be treated after potting is what's going to make all the difference. So now we can see the difference with this. a whole bunch of dead squishy roots in the center. There's a lot of people that will only repot their cymbidiums every 4 to 5 years, and this is because they don't want that delay in flowering. But you don't necessarily have to get that delay in flowering if you are repotting more frequently. There's just a number of ways you can go about it. But once you've left your plant to this sort of state, you know you're going to have a wait. I have to clean off all those old dead pseudobulbs. And we see how squishy all these roots have become in here. And there we go. If we're looking carefully, we can see all those new little root growths coming off the new spike. So that's going to produce a new pseudobulb and the new leaves and all those new roots at the bottom. So again, sanitized equipment. Doing this, I'm going to be taking off some of those viable roots as well. It's just to clean up the plant properly, to make sure that there's no bugs that can possibly carry on breeding where all these dead roots were. So we're basically removing almost everything. This now you're going to have to be sure that you stake up properly, because there's nothing that's going to be able to anchor it nicely, and you want to make sure that this growth can keep growing in the correct direction. So that's going to have to be staked up properly. And this one we have 2 new growths and a little budlet coming up over there, and we have some roots that have some active growth on them, so I'm going to be keeping those. So I'm going to be planting it up into this pot, which is a bigger pot than it originally started in. But we'll also notice that it's not terribly deep. It's almost as wide as it is deep, which is going to allow for that breathability from the top, especially with plastic pots, although it does have all these holes in the bottom that will allow for the drainage. It's going to allow for that breathability. Terracotta pots are particularly good, especially with cymbidiums and when using a mix such as this. And we all know that leaf litter or leaves, as they start to rot, almost start to disappear. So you know you're going to get a lot of shrinkage in your pot itself. But this is where the wonderful thing about this media comes in, is that allows you to repot your cymbidium every single year. Because your media is so loose and friable, it will just shake straight out of the roots as you take it out the pot, and it's going to cause very little transplant shock, if any at all. So all you'll be doing every year is just pulling it out the pot and potting it straight back up. This is going to save you so much time in that long-term repotting that I've had to do with the other ones, and having to try and fight with all that media to get it out from in between the roots. If you allow your plant a single year's worth of growth and that big flowering, you can just tip it out afterwards, shake it around, and you don't actually have to get rid of that media. All you need to do is add some extra. So you can actually leave that media into the bottom of the pot and then just top it up and lift your plant so that your plant's not lower down in the pot and your media is starting to cover those old pseudobulbs. Although it may seem like more work to do this every year, you'll be surprised at how much easier it really does make it. And with the fact that you're using all your own garden refuse and the amount of space that it takes up in your media, it saves you incredible amounts of media and a lot of money in that matter. And also you'll notice when working with this media, it's difficult to compact it down, which is going to make it absolutely ideal, because you don't want to be compacting your media. You want it to be nice and friable and loose and fluffy. and allow those roots to shoot through and the roots to breathe. So it's going to be just as easy as that. And then after flowering next year, we'll show you it again and how much subsidence of the media has taken place and how easy it is to remove it from its pot without damaging the plant at all. So just remember, when using this media, you're using all that amazing leaf litter that's fallen off your trees, that you've had to rake up off your lawn in winter, and you're adding that potting soil. So you're adding quite a substantial amount of kraal manure or cattle manure. Horse manure also is something like that, would also work. It's just to supply that extra, remember, it's to supply that extra nitrogen that can be available for the plant and for the decomposition that's going to be taking place inside the media itself because of all these leaves. The perlite also is there. It's going to help hold any extra nutrients so that they're not washed out when watering. It's a nice, light, friable mix. It maintains its moisture content while still allowing for good drainage and allows for that excellent air movement through it. So I don't know why more people haven't been using this for a lot longer in Western countries. Perhaps it's just easier to leave your plant in the same pot for 5 or 6 years maybe, and then have to fight. But if you think of it, how quick and easy this is going to be to repot, it's really so much less effort. It's going to cause your plant so much less stress, and you'll get a much faster growing, better looking plant. So happy Cymbidium growing. And Ed has put a lot of information down in that Buy Me a Coffee link with regards to orchids and orchid media. So please feel free to go have a look down there. And thank you for watching. If you found any of this information helpful, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button down below, and that notification bell, bing bong, to be notified of all our upcoming content so you don't miss out on a thing. Help us grow as we help your orchids grow.